Welcome to episode 29 of Matthewlinity. Last time I began a first look at Matthew 5 verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, because theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. This time I'd like to look a little bit more at what it is not saying. I'll talk a little bit more about what kind of verse it is and is not. So there's quite a few things that we often assume about this verse that we really need to rethink it. There's quite a few components to the way that we interpret it that we need to rethink. And one of the things that is actually challenging to do, we sort of do it sometimes and then we sort of forget to do it at other times, and that is that there's more than one level that the text of things going on in the text. That yes, there's the level that we're reading it. We're one of the future audiences. The readers and the hearers of Matthew are expected to be able to read and listen to the book of Matthew being read. But there's the narrative level. Like sometimes we just miss what's going on at the narrative level. Like it's a story. There's lots of little stories within this story. In the book of Matthew, we've got a lot of things that keep happening that are apparently connected, and to notice the connections and to read it in its narrative context, then that's actually really helpful, because we often will miss that level, that narrative level, and try to extract it out and say, well, this is some nice Christian theology. We sort of take it out of context. We might not even notice that we're doing that, but the narrative context is really worth studying probably first before we sort of get to, okay, well, how are we expected to hear this as people who are reading this as a sacred text and wanting to get some really good theology out of it or some practical advice. So one of the first things to notice is Jesus being depicted as giving advice? Like, is it actually advice? Well, no, it's not advice. So we often read it as if Jesus is giving advice for Christians to follow, but actually there's no commands here. It's just, well, what do we call it? So before I really go into what it is, there's a few things we're looking at what it isn't. So the first thing to notice is we could read it as advice once we understand a little bit more about what the verse is and isn't, and we could still, like, even if something is not advice, we can still get some good advice out of it. But technically speaking, this is not a command or a commandment. It's not appealing directly to the disciples to do something. In fact, Jesus isn't even necessarily talking to the disciples about the disciples. So that's the second thing to notice. So the first thing is it advice? Well, not directly, no. And the second thing is, who is it that Jesus is talking about? Because he's talking to the disciples, but he's not talking about the disciples. So Jesus is talking about, well, the people in the last few verses that he's been healing. It says that people kept bringing people to him that were sick, that were ill, that had various afflictions. In fact, Matthew is saying that it was every kind of affliction and illness that Jesus was healing. People kept bringing more people, and Jesus healed all of them. So it seems like that's who Jesus is. Well, Jesus might not be just talking about the people who have already been brought for healing. There's people who brought the people who've been brought for healing. He's not necessarily just talking about those crowds. It could just be more general. whether they're in these particular crowds or they're coming up in future crowds, because there's a lot more work to be done. So at this point, this is week 1 in Jesus's ministry, where he's called 4 students to watch and learn and to be taught by him. So he's got Peter, Andrew, James, and John, and they've seen him heal so many different people, and now Jesus, for the first time, is teaching his disciples. So he's teaching Peter, Andrew, James, and John. But before he talks to them directly about them, he begins by talking about those who are poor in spirit, and those who are mourning, those who are meek, and those who are longing to experience righteousness, longing to taste what is right, to be able to see and experience the right thing being done around them. And that hasn't happened yet. So the first 4 are quite desperate states, where it's characterized by the lack of what's going on, the lack of spirit, the lack of whatever the grief and loss is. Grief and loss is a loss, is a lack. And then the meek, they don't have the ability or the chance or the power or the influence to fight back and to retaliate. They're easily pushed off their land, pushed around. They're not rising up and retaliating. They are characterized by what they're not doing. And the 4th one, again, you can see it's characterized by what is lacking, experiencing right action, seeing right action being done. So the first 4 are all characterized by a lack of something. An impoverishment of spirit is the first one. That's the one that we're looking at. There's lots of things to notice about what it's not as well as what it is. And it's going to take a while. I think it's really going to take me a while to unpack these verses, even just the first verse. Although I think the first one is probably the most challenging, the most difficult, because there's so many things that we need to rethink our assumptions about what is and isn't in this verse, and what is meant by poor in spirit. So I think next time I'll look a little bit more at what it's not. And so these blessings or macarisms or beatitudes, what exactly are they? That's something it's going to take a while to unpack this. But particularly, it's very important, I think, to unpack what we're assuming that it is, so that we can keep double checking that. We just need to check what are these assumptions that we're making and evaluate those in light of what actually is in the text of Matthew. Okay, so until next time, we'll keep going on this very same verse. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. That's all for this episode. Thank you for listening.